Hey, Nation, Harry here. It is September 28th, and that's an important date because today Peter Sy and the team at Spiceworks, Ziff Davis, I still call you Spiceworks, released their 2022 State of the IT report. It's a highly anticipated annual report. Peter, over to you. What's behind this report? You work on it a couple of months. You do a lot of research. What did you see last year? More importantly, what are you seeing this year?
Sure. It's an annual report we put out every year. It's about IT budgets and tech adoption plans. And we've been doing this research for about 10 years now. And every year we interview more than 1,000 IT professionals through the survey that we put out. And we're looking at future trends. So it's 2021 right now, but we asked them about what's going to happen in 2022.
Yep.
And every year we put out a report, as you mentioned previously. We put it out at Spice World, our annual convention.
Yeah.
And I just got back from presenting it to a live audience, and it's been live since this morning. And some of the key highlights are we saw that remote work has driven a lot of changes in IT, and a lot of people have been forced to work remotely.
Now,
due to
you
COVID.
and I are doing it right here, remote working.
Yeah. This is my living room behind us. And you mentioned you still call it Spice World, Spiceworks. So I'm wearing the t-shirt to represent. But this year we found some really interesting findings. A lot of businesses are much more optimistic than they were in the past. Last year, a lot of companies cut back on non-essential spend. But this year, revenues are going to be up. IT budgets are going to be up. So 61% of companies said that they expect to make more money than they did in the previous year in 2022. And 53% of companies anticipate increasing their IT budgets going forward, which is great news for both IT pros and for tech vendors.
Excellent. I'm looking at the report, and it's broken up into 6 chapters, and it's sort of it's kind of like an ebook. Is there a downloadable PDF for this, or is this the format that you've released it in?
We're embracing the future, so it's a interactive, not necessarily ebook, but it does have the chapters as you mentioned, and it's online, mobile friendly, so you can read it from whatever device you want to.
Yeah, so let's maybe a couple questions. The future of IT careers. I went to your analyst briefing a week ago, and it sounds like people are open and receptive to changing jobs. I was surprised by that. What do you know?
Yeah, so remote work is going to be big, as you know, it already is, and it's going to continue to be in the future. We estimate about a quarter of the workforce will be remote permanently, either hybrid or fully remote. And also next year, we think about a quarter of IT professionals are going to look for or change jobs going forward. And remote work is going to be a really vital option because 86% of those who said they were looking for jobs said that they would look for a remote job or consider one going forward.
Yeah. I've just double clicked into chapter 3, 2022 IT budget breakdown, and I'm looking at one of the charts, hardware budget breakout. And you're seeing a slight decrease. We certainly see the bump in laptop spends last year. I'm assuming reflecting the pandemic share shift that everyone ran out and bought laptops. That's declined a point. Desktops steady at 14% of the hardware budgets, and no decline, but steady. Servers 2 years ago, 14% down to 11%. So let's talk cloud computing. What are your findings in cloud? Because that's where I'm going with this.
Sure. Yeah. So every year we break out the budgets by software and hardware for on-premises infrastructure, but we also ask about cloud and managed services. So year over year, we've seen cloud spending increase as an overall percentage of IT spend. So it's up 4 percentage points year over year as a portion of the overall IT budgets that our IT professionals are allocating in the year to come. So as we've seen that shift, we've seen some share taken away from hardware and software in the areas that relate to on-premise infrastructure. So for example, in software, we saw OS spending down a little bit. We saw virtualization spending down a little bit while that money is shifting into cloud.
Okay, and then maybe the final question I have, and we'll give it back to you for some closing remarks. I'm looking at telephony, the spend in telephony holding steady at 5% over the last 3 years. Does that category include unified communications, or is that a separate category? Because I'd expect it to be going up.
Right. So it is a little bit separate. We do have a special report coming out probably in another couple of months about specifically workplace communication solutions, which would include unified communications and productivity type solutions such as Slack and Teams. But yeah, we did a separate survey right after everybody went remote, talking about telephony a little bit. And the reality is that a lot of people are still using either voice over IP systems, or they're using unified communication solutions that will allow their phones to still ring from their work numbers. So it is a bit of a complex topic. We didn't necessarily specify in our survey whether telephony encompassed a very specific type of communication solution, but we did have extra questions that we didn't publish yet, specifically about some of these newer communications technologies that we'll cover at a future date.
Okay, and I'll let you take us out. Any final thoughts? You actually have a portion here called conclusions and takeaways. You want to give us one or two of those, and we'll call it good for a year.
Yeah, sure. So overall, as I mentioned earlier, we have a very optimistic outlook for 2022. Budgets are up, revenues are expected to go up. And with this shift to remote work comes the shift to cloud services and managed services, as some budget from on-prem software and hardware shift that way. Additionally, we see a lot of companies that cut back on spending in previous years plan to reinvigorate their modernization efforts, especially around emerging technologies. And we see a lot of these changes are going to be driven, as we mentioned before, by a prioritization on some of these IT projects. Now more than ever, I think a lot of companies see the value in IT as an enabler of productivity among the remote workforce, whereas before they might have viewed it as a cost center. So we think all of this news is really positive for everybody in the Spiceworks community, whether you're an IT professional or a tech vendor trying to help companies do their jobs better every day. So yeah, we saw a really clear message this year that that remote work is really catalyzing change and businesses are ready to spend.
All right. Well, great. And yeah, I have read the report, attended your briefing, folks. You can click on the link below in the blog to download it, or, well, that's not true. It's interactive. You don't download it, but interact with it. Well, keep me on the short list of your research. Thank you very much.
Will do. And thanks for having me.
All right.